Alright guys, so in this video I played Assassin's Creed 2 in 2022. 12 whole years since its initial release on November 17th, 2009. This whole video is me just talking about my thoughts after finishing the game and like a 2022 review of the game. As I know lots of people say this is the best one in the franchise, and they always say they want to play it for the first time again. Like they would literally like lose a limb to experience the story for the very first time. Now, a lot of people also said that with my personal favourite story game of all time, Red Dead Redemption 2. So if I'm comparing it to that, then I already had high hopes for the game. But so many people say it's good, and I already knew it was. I was in for something pretty big when I started it. Now I'm actually going to be playing every single Assassin's Creed game in a row, and like one after the other in the franchise, up to Assassin's Creed Odyssey. And so I've actually already played Valhalla, which is weird because it's like the most recent one, but I don't know, I just wanted to play it. I suppose I should have played some of the earlier ones, as a lot of people say it's not that great, Valhalla, and they always miss the OG games. And I'll be doing that, so I'm excited to experience all of the games in order, and I'll also be uploading a video on each one as I finish them. So, you know, stay tuned for more of this, but the focus of this video is of course Assassin's Creed 2, which is the second main game in the series, as I actually can't play Assassin's Creed 1 because it isn't on PlayStation 4. So if you don't know what Assassin's Creed is, I can give a brief summary of what you do in the franchise, and then I'll obviously go more in depth with just Assassin's Creed 2. So Assassin's Creed's running theme is with the main protagonist, in this game's case Desmond Miles, and they basically have to relive their ancestors' memories through a machine called the Animus. And you basically discover different locations and experience like multiple events in the assassin's life, which obviously vary in each game, which is the thing I love about the franchise, and how there's so many, you know, different places it's set, whether that be, you know, Greece, Italy, England, Egypt. Like it's always something different in each game, as well as the different protagonists, which they portray really well, especially in this game, which I'll obviously talk more about. So if you're excited, then go ahead and hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to. Like I said, I'll be branching out with some more gaming content with Assassin's Creed at the moment. So the story of Assassin's Creed 2 starts with the birth, of course, of the main character Ezio Auditore.
Tu sei un auditore, sei un combattente.
And it fast forwards years later to Ezio being 17 years old, and of course he witnesses his father and brothers being killed right in front of him.
We will have yours in return, I swear! We will! Father!
So then by the end of the game, he's actually the age of 40, therefore the story is over a 22-year gap. Which I actually only found out too late, and it's crazy, 22 years, it's mad. But what I really saw, and what they really captured well in the game, is just how they just portrayed the character of Ezio. Like, they made him really bond with the player, I mean especially me. Like, I could clearly see how he evolved throughout the whole game. Of course it has been 22 years, so you're going to change a lot. But the main switch was of course after his father died, and then he puts on that iconic cutscene when he puts on the robes and his armor and everything. And the music in that scene is, yeah, I mean the whole game, the music is something else. But there's not many other games that do it as well as this, when they really get to show how the character changes. Like, they did it really incredibly well. Because at the start it's just so simple, you know, he's just a teenager, 17-year-old, and he has that little, you know, fight in the cutscene at the start with that big rock that goes on his face, and he has a scar throughout the whole game. But just how that changes, and he obviously, you know, joins the Assassin's Brotherhood. Now, like I said, I didn't actually play the first one, but apparently Assassin's Creed 2 isn't a direct sequel to the first one. Like, in terms of the actual plot of the game, it's not a direct sequel. But it kind of just builds on the first game and just, you know, refines it more, because with the first game, you have to remember it was 2007, which is crazy, it was that long ago. And it was their first ever game they did, and they were kind of experimenting, and it can be quite buggy, and they just kind of refined it more with this. Of course, not just that, like they did, you know, a big story but with the first one they were kind of like experimenting and just, you know, testing the waters a bit, and it'll be nice to play it, but I'm glad to say that I haven't really missed out like a big key moment that I should know. Like for example, The Last of Us, you kind of have to play the first one to actually get the second one. All I can say from finishing the game is the story and how it's written and how it's just portrayed is just incredible. Like they've done it really well. It's something else. And bearing in mind it is 12 years old, but there's not many games that have come close to it. And not even just the story, like I'll obviously talk more about the combat and the overall gameplay, as you can see on the screen right now. Just how smooth the combat is for this old of a game. And, you know, the same with like the lighting, of course, and the whole setting of the game, which is incredible, especially Italy. It is one of the most beautiful places in the world. And to have that in a video game and experience it this well, and like all the little fine details, the different architecture on the buildings, it's incredible. But I'd say the best thing is the story, like how they've just really shown the characters and how they change, especially, of course, the protagonist, which I keep talking about, but it is really done well. Of course it is going to be mainly Ezio because that's who you play as throughout the whole game. Of course there is the parts when you of course play as Desmond Miles, but there isn't that much and it isn't really relevant. Because I know that with Brotherhood, I've started playing that a bit, and a lot of people say that there's more of a story with the Desmond Miles bit, and it really does connect well, and it's a lot more important and relevant. Now, as you may be able to tell in the story, a big building block for it is this feeling of revenge for Ezio, and it's something quite significant in his role. Although that feeling of revenge in some other games, but this one, it doesn't really get in the way in becoming this renowned, iconic assassin. Like some other games, I don't really want to go on a tangent and talk about a load of different, you know, comparisons with a load of different games. However, I'm just going to talk about, for example, The Last of Us 2, the character of Ellie. Revenge gets in the way a lot, and it fully changes her character in a bad way. By the end of the game, actually her just pretty much losing everything she had. But Ezio's character, it of course changes, which I've talked about earlier, and they've really portrayed that well. But I'm just saying that feeling of revenge doesn't get in the way. As well as the story being incredibly easy to follow, apparently in the first game it wasn't as easy, and this one they've just made it so much better, and the story is engaging. Like it's a likable character of Ezio, and I think a big factor of that is the time span of the game. A lot of other games don't feel as realistic with how quick they're going, and I'm not saying it's a really long game because I think it's about 17 hours in total, which isn't really that much, but I'm saying the 22-year gap between his, you know, this 17-year-old Italian boy wanting to, you know, just cause trouble pretty much, and then 22 years later becoming this, you know, huge, just incredible assassin. It just feels a lot more realistic with that 22-year time span. Now I also want to talk about for a bit the villain of Rodrigo Borgia, who a lot of games do it, but every single time you kind of meet him or you think you have him, another, I don't know how many years, 4 or 5 years go by when you actually meet him again, which makes it just so engaging. And just that character of Rodrigo, he is very mysterious, and of course that is a running theme in so many different story games, with how a lot of the scenes he's in, he's kind of got people around him in secret, especially that iconic scene, which is one of my favourites. Ezio actually meets him, tries to kill him, and he actually calls in his guards later on, and not straight away, and it gives off this personal hatred towards the two characters, and it's really strong throughout the whole story, and just adds on to that big rivalry between them. And then there's the other characters, of course, Mario, Claudia and Katrina, which just, once again, they're portrayed really well and just gives them more of a personality to Ezio, with how you're always going back to them at some point in the story every now and then. And they bond really well as well, and they kind of make him relatable, of how we always see Ezio, you know, talking to them and relating to them, which just adds on to how likeable his character is. But then I also do want to talk about the combat of the game, which is quite similar to the first game, judging off some gameplay that I've watched. However, it is just improved in terms of how smooth and refined it is. It's really quite satisfying to use the swords, and there's quite a variety of weapons you can use, and, you know, different hidden blade combats. Then of course quite useful things like the smoke bombs you can use and the disarming of weapons, which I found quite fun, I can't lie. I know that other games may feel smoother and better, but I always think back to how it was created in 2009. And from playing a bit of Brotherhood, of course the next game in the series, the combat is a big focus of improvement for the game. The stealth is also a fun part and can always be, you know, different when used with the use of the new types of assassinations, which is so many, which have incredible animation to them. Then once again, the different gadgets you can use, which I guess adds a sense of creativity, I guess. Another thing that stands out, which I really love, is of course the setting. Italy being one of the most beautiful countries in the world. Just the way like the buildings are created and the small details and like the architecture, just incredible. And just the lighting, it looks so good. But just the different outfits and stuff, like just little things like the NPCs, of course, like how they actually have like quite a good personality, I can't lie. Like they have a lot of life to them, they're not just stood there. Of course you can use them in so many ways as well. You can of course blend in with different groups, which can not make you spotted by any people. And they also like give that to the player quite well, which once again adds to how easy it is to follow. There's so many different missions where it just kind of learns how to do stuff, but there's other games which do that and it's just long-winded and it goes on for quite a long time. But with this, it's just a simple, quick mission you can do just to show you a new technique, which is literally like a 2-minute mission. It's so easy, and it even has like the stealing in the same mission. There's so many different things that are just kind of put into one, and it just adds this new thing to look forward to in the game. Yeah, I do love the look of the game. It's just, with Italy, it's quite a good place for it, especially with the parkour aspect. There's so many different things you can do, makes it quite immersive and interactive. It's just really fun. I'll never just get used to just jumping over rooftops and stuff and climbing up different sides of buildings, and it's quite easy to do as well because of how, you know, the different architecture of the buildings. It's quite simple to do with just different ledges and parts of the buildings to grab onto, but there's also, you know, a lot of variety in it as well. There's a lot of different things to do. I know a lot of people say this isn't the best game for the parkour. It still is great and I loved it, but a lot of people say it really does improve in, well, the same with Brotherhood, and then Revelations is one of the best ones. But I did find it really fun to do, and you just, yeah, you do experience the place of Italy. However, of course, it is 2009, 12 years old. Graphics aren't going to be as good as, of course, you know, a present game like Valhalla. To me, you know, I love that. Like, I do like when the graphics are good, but I kind of expected it to not be great. However, there was a lot of times when I was still very impressed with just the lighting and the reflections of the game and just little details. Like, it still looks so good with it being 12 years old. And I would say it's still definitely worth buying in 2022. I mean, it really doesn't matter what year it is. With this game, like I said, the graphics haven't really aged like really poorly. I guess that would be the only really real reason, because the story is still great. Like, it doesn't matter when you play the story, it's still going to be perfect. But I guess some people may take into account like the bugs and just, like I said, the graphics maybe. But for me, that wasn't really an issue. Like, I didn't really have that many bugs. There was a couple, but not really many. Yeah, absolutely, definitely worth buying in this year. I mean, anyone who hasn't experienced the game, you need to experience the game. Of course, that's if you're into story games. But I'd say everyone who likes story games has to experience this game at one point. Because, yeah, it was fantastic. It's incredible. And to me, of course, I've only really played 2 Assassin's Creed games. Of course, Valhalla, the most recent one, and then this, arguably the best one from a lot of people, but I can't really give my overall, I can give a rating, but I can't really say it's my favourite because I haven't played them all. But I have a slight feeling it is going to be my favourite, or definitely very high up there. But for the rating, I'll have to give it like a 9.5. It's one of my favourite games I've ever played. I kind of did expect that. The only reason I wouldn't give it a 10 is, I guess, because I haven't played them all. I don't really know if I'm going to like more games in the series than this one. I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. And then I guess like some bugs, but there was literally none. And then the graphics, of course, can bring it down a bit, but I feel like it is kind of harsh because it was 12 years ago. But yeah, 9.5 is still a great rating. That does actually wrap up my review of Assassin's Creed 2 in 2022. Now, I actually did get the Ezio collection, which is all 3 of the Ezio games in one, for $11.95 on Amazon. So I'd say Amazon is probably the best site for it, or you could even look on eBay to get it even cheaper. But definitely the Ezio collection I do recommend, because it's 3 of the games you can experience, and for 3 games for £12, not bad. And it's for a game of this high of a rating as well. It's not like it's a poorly sold or poorly rated game. I definitely do recommend playing this if you haven't already. I think that's everything. Like I said, I would really appreciate it if you did hit that like button down below. Of course, I don't usually do this style of content. It's taken a while to record. Of course, there's a lot of in-depth talking and review. And if you want to see more, then of course hit that subscribe button. I do the G-View content as well if you want to see that. That's of course if you would like to. Hope you enjoyed it, and bye bye.